Grant, you are correct. I did not invent Patreon. You are correct.
Wine, 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 a wine.
And that's the cow of shame, mooing pure hatred to a Brexiteer pub.
Lando Calrissian's head over here as well. I don't know what that's doing in here, but that's just fallen off a shelf. I'm slightly creeped out by it, to be honest. I don't want it staring at me. Perhaps I should use this instead. Hulk Hogan. Never leave home without him.
Everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Cook, along with Grant Hutchison, Martin Goodwin-Sharman, and producer Scott. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll be chatting with TV presenter and drinks expert Olly Smith. We'll also be tasting a fabulous new drink from the newest master blender in town. But first, well, welcome to our first episode of Season 2. Now, things have changed a little bit since last season, and we'll now be releasing episodes less frequently than previously. Probably monthly, but maybe more frequently. We don't yet know. It just depends. Well, I don't know. It just depends how much time we can make for it in the crazy busy schedule of all of our lives. But know this. We appreciate you and all you do to support our podcast, so we want to keep it going in some form and fashion. And speaking of being busy, ready? I've launched my Patreon page.
Yeah.
Whoa, say that again.
Hold on.
Say that again.
You gotta say the word.
Sorry. Patreon.
So if
Patreon.
You didn't invent Patreon. Hold on. So we can
so Pellicle, previous guest Pellicle have a Patreon. Who else has a Patreon?
Berham Collective have a Patreon.
Yeah.
Cider Chat podcast, the other Cider podcast has a Patreon.
Did we ever consider a Patreon at any point?
I think we did episodes specifically for Patreon.
Yeah. Which weren't used on Patreon, but they were used for full
when
episodes.
you were able.
Yeah, because I was so busy.
But when we were using those Patreon episodes whilst you were unable to.
That's right. And I was finishing off. I was also finishing off.
You were writing about British Cider.
Yeah.
But also to sell Il Mondo del Cidro, mainly.
You fuckers. All right, my fingers are cramping.
That's the most I'm surprised we managed to keep that rally going. That's like when you're a kid and you're like passing the ball or something and you're like, you got keepy uppy. That was like, we've got to keep going.
Yeah, don't touch the floor.
Never stop.
The balloon at the party. Okay. No.
So, Gabe,
Scott,
tell us.
Grant, you are correct. I did not invent Patreon.
Sorry, that
but
you will conquer
Patreon page. Yeah, well, we'll see. Hopefully, it is for anybody who doesn't know what Patreon is. It's a platform that acts effectively as a membership club. It's a place where you can get access to exclusive content produced by me. So we're talking about articles, we are talking about newsletters, we are talking about interviews with cider makers and maybe other celebrity folk. I haven't found any celebrities yet. There's also going to be talks and tastings and hangouts, and there's going to be discounts with cider makers. There is going to be free shiz as well.
Whoa.
So if that interests you, head to Patreon, that's patreon.com/Ciderologist. There are 4 different tiers. The more money you pay per month, the more stuff you get in return.
Ooh.
So yeah, have a look, sign up, come and join the Ciderology community.
Don't stop the teas there. Tell me the tiers.
Oh, the tiers. The tracks of my tears. Smokey Robinson's great song.
Is he deflecting because he didn't remember the tiers? Is this what?
No, I just wanted to make a joke,
now,
but it really didn't. I can tell you. Tier 1 is called Golden Russet. And in Golden Russet, this is where your kind of general thanks and support for the Ciderologist. If you like what I do, you'll also get a free newsletter, some behind the scenes kind of stuff, and you'll just get a lovely, warm, fuzzy feeling about things. You'll also have access to the Discord community. I had no idea what Discord was until about a week ago when producer Scott broke my wrist and told me that I had to do it. It's where all the gamers hang out, apparently. So, yeah. In fact, literally just at that moment, a Discord notification has just popped up on my screen by the two people.
Out of interest, can you tell me a brief history of the Cider Maker gamers and why they're there?
No.
I thought you'd have Gamers Cider as like a knowledge supreme.
Gamers, I didn't get the joke. You're operating on a different level, Martin.
Neither did I.
That was bro. Can we have a round of applause, producer Scott, please?
Tier 2.
Oh,
Tier 2. That's yeah.
Gamers Cider was founded in the 18th century in Norfolk. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Can I just bring up one thing before we move on? Isn't Golden Russet like your favourite apple?
It's my favourite American apple. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But also,
and yet it's the lowest tier.
No. But it's an everyman's thing. If he appreciates the support.
No,
of everyone.
I wasn't an attack.
No,
all right.
No. It's a fair point. What I didn't want to do is to say you've signed up to Hen's Turds or something like that. I didn't want.
I mean, that's something I would sign up to.
Can that be the top tier?
maybe I should change it to Hen's Turds.
Top tier.
And the second tier would be Slack McGirdle or something. Maybe I've gone about
Hen's
it all wrong.
Turds the Neutral Cider Hotel bowling team?
Right, tier 2.
Well, it is
tier
now.
2.
Tier 2 is Yarlington Mill.
Ooh.
And within Yarlington Mill, as well as everything from the previous tier, you also get access to all of the longer form articles that I'll be writing. There's already there's a couple of sort of freebies in there for everybody who signs up, but there's one sort of bespoke one in there already. Have a mooch, have a check it out. It should, those articles hopefully are things akin to that are written for other wonderful websites like Pellicle, but all written by me. Maybe I'll get some guests in there. Who knows? Would any of you like to write an article for my Patreon? So farming out content creation.
Tell us about tier 3.
Good idea. Okay.
I know. Were you speaking to our listeners there, or?
No, I was speaking to you three.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you were doing it to the listeners. I thought you were opening it up to everyone.
Would you like to pay money to write stuff for me so that I can have your money?
Not quite.
Martin, you are an entrepreneur extraordinary.
My pay rate per word is negative 10p.
Tier 3.
Also within.
we're moving on.
Also within. There's more content to come.
Sorry.
Also, within Yarlington Mill, there are also what I call the Ciderology currently. Anyway, the Ciderology sessions. So this is recorded chats and interviews with some cider makers. So if you like that, then get in there. Tier 3 is Stinking.
Oh,
Bishop.
there he is.
Yeah. So in addition to everything that has come before, you will get a free t-shirt. That's right, everybody. You're going to get a free t-shirt. You will get a free book, either Modern British Cider. There we go. Yeah. Or Ciderology. Up to you. And I will sign it and I will post it out to you. You do have to sign up for a couple of months in order to gain that discount.
That 3 months, Gabe. Come on, you're not dicking around here. You're not getting taken advantage of. 3 months, and then you get a signed book.
I'll change it to 3 months.
I'll be your agent. I'll be your manager. Right. I'll sort this fuckers out.
All right. Thank you. We'll also get early bird ticket access to any live events or activities or
famously
online.
never cancelled as well.
That's right. Never, ever cancel. You'll also get access to some discounts. I am talking with a number of cider makers in the UK, in the USA, in Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand to have special bespoke discount codes only for Ciderologist
now it's sounding
Patreon
interesting.
members. That's right.
Oh.
So those are coming together. We'll hopefully be announcing the first ones of those next week. And then there's also what I'm currently calling the Cider Cellar, which might have a better name, which is kind of live in person hangout. So whether we do a big tasting session around all the members from around the world, we'll get again some cider makers in. Maybe we'll even do a special neutral cider hotel hangout. What say you, gentlemen?
So tier 4.
Tier 4
is
Tier 4.
Okay.
Yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Let's do it.
Moving on.
Let's all have, no, but it'll have to be like when you go back to like one person's hotel room afterwards. You know, when it's the after party. We're not talking after party is for idiots. After party is for tier 2. Tier 3 is after show. You know, so it's got to be real exclusive. Right. But yes, I'm in. Count me in.
But there's another tier, and it's called Dimmock Red.
There you go. I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Dimmock Red. Here we go. This is why I read. So, are you a cider maker, pub, bar, bottle shop, distributor, or online cider provider? Nod. Or do you simply love cider as much as I do and have pockets deeper than Loch Ness? If you like what I do and want to support my quest for cider nirvana, then buy yourself a Dimmock Red, the finest of apples, and be a top supporter. By choosing this tier, as well as having access to all of the benefits ascribed to Stinking Bishop, you will gain the added bonuses of having your name, business or personal, attached to every single piece of content I create, so the world will know just how supportive you are. You'll also get free VIP access to any online or in-person event I'll be hosting, and we'll schedule in a monthly Ciderologist check-in, an hour-long one-to-one session. The Lucky Devils, and true to form, I have a Dimmock Red supporter already. His name is Chuck Shelton from Albemarle Cider Works in the US. An absolute, one of my top 10 US cider makers. What a legend, what a hero, has already signed up and pledged to the Dimmock Red. So thank you, Chuck. Everybody, drink Albemarle Cider Works cider. It's amazing. Their single variety Harrison is one of the great
Hang on. How was this an advert
ciders.
in an advert? I'm not advert inception in here. We didn't even get our own Patreon. We didn't even get our own Patreon content. Oh, God.
This is true. Well,
no, but this is excellent. Can I just say this is excellent?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very kind. Thank you, Grant. That is appreciated. Costs, did you say, Scott? To sign up for Golden Russet in UK money is £4 plus tax plus VAT. For Yarlington Mill is £8, and Stinking Bishop is £12, and Dimmock Red is £100. Pachauza.
Worth it. Worth every penny.
Totally worth it. You get to have a tete-a-tete avec moi. You lucky things.
Avec moi, indeed. Dude, honestly, to echo Grant's quick sentiment there, that this is great. This is great. This is, again, everything we do as pioneers is indicative of how good we are and how good cider is. And the fact that you, the best of us, is doing another good thing is incredible. And I'm so glad that there is another sound that I will hear every week, every month, every year.
Well, absolutely. It's been a bit lonely not saying, modern British cider every single week, multiple times in the introduction. Modern British cider, modern British cider, modern British cider, just going
also,
for it.
I mean, I noticed that in the Dimmock Red tier, you mentioned
4. Yes.
Tier 4. Do you have a shop? Are you a distributor? I feel that's quite targeted to one of the presenters on this podcast.
Well, cat's out of the bag. I'll be opening up my own distribution and shop called Apple, spelt the proper British way, obviously. No sound
I feel
for
like
that.
you're going to just start charging us to hang out with you.
He's talking to us and he stops and goes, wait, oh, actually that's stinking Bishop content. Never mind.
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
And then I had a really good. Oh no, I probably can't talk about it.
Oh, yeah,
like,
you can't
pop-up
ask,
ad blocker
me
in the
that
pub.
question. Or like when only like we'll ask you a question and we must cross your palm with silver before you answer it. That's what it's going to be like.
Pretty much.
Oh, okay, fucks.
A little bit, I suspect. So
Brilliant.
but
Can't
we'll
wait.
see how it goes. This is a new journey, a new adventure for me, and you know I'm very, very excited about creating a space, a community where you know hopefully lots of the listeners will come and hang out because we like you, our listeners. If you are listening to our show, you are obviously of a similar and like mind in our attitude to things, and that's a fun thing. So to come and hang out, let's have some fun.
And will you repeat the URL again where people can go sign up?
I will. It is www.patreon.com/Ciderologist.
Patreon.com or
Oh yeah, did I not say that?
right.
So
I think you should maybe not do this sound in the middle of it.
So the URL.
Say the URL and I'll just interrupt you with a fucking soundbite.
Yeah, so the URL is www.patreon.com Ciderologist.
No, you loved the pause and then didn't.
You did.
.patreon.com/Ciderologist. Just find it. Ciderologist Patreon. You'll find it.
Just find it.
Just find it.
I'll tell you what.
Just shout into the wind. You'll find it.
show notes. There you go.
There we go. Thank you very much. Right. Well, you know, I think that's enough self-aggrandizing for our first episode of season 2. Now let's open up the papers and see what's happening in the news. And now it's time for this week's news. In fact, it's our first news of 2022.
Better be big.
What? Oh, and it is. What's happening in the world of cider? Oh, beyond tax changes, obviously. Well, top of the list, obviously, is the fact that there is a brand new cider subscription service for bespoke content. It's called the Ciderologist Patreon. You can go there at patreon.com/Ciderologist.
I think, do we not just spend half an hour talking about the Patreon, which has its own fucking sound that didn't just happen? Patreon.
I can't believe how much sound has become a fucking annoyance already in this. But Gabe, you didn't even ask us how we've been doing in the break.
I know.
You just steamrolled in with your advert. You
But
fucking
first-
billboard.
I'm channeling my inner, Trump and Branson. I'm going all out, ego, megalomaniac, entrepreneur, gonna take over the world.
And you can get all
Watch out,
this
Jeff
content.
Bezos.
I think cider needs more people
with
like
a cider
that.
twang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not
So
enough.
are you the savior of cider now? Is this what's happened?
Ooh.
Make cider great again.
I will say I got a message from previous guests. So from the Neutral Cider Hotel account, I Instagrammed your Patreon ad, and it was it's time to join the cult. And Simon previously from Hawk said, I misread that last word.
It's a little rude and only slightly plausible. So, all right then, chaps, fair dues, maybe a little gratuitous on the plugging there. So, well, I've plucked out of the news. Actually, it was something that happened just before Christmas, but we haven't talked about it. It's quite a big thing for the UK. There's a big chain of pubs called Wetherspoon, and they have ditched.
And that's the cow of shame, mooing pure hatred to a Brexiteer pub. So carry on, Gabe.
For those who are not in the UK who don't know Wetherspoon, it's effectively like quite a sort of cheap and discounted booze place, which in the past has done a number of sort of cider festivals. Actually, that's had the opportunity for some smaller cider makers in there. Anyway,
can I ask? Is it singular or plural?
I think it's JD Wetherspoon.
So you wouldn't say Wetherspoons? I'm actually asking seriously now.
I mean, I would probably call it Wetherspoons, but it's JD Wetherspoon.
Yeah. Oh, it's called Wetherspoons Company. JD Wetherspoon. So it's his. So ownership.
So it's. Oh, I see. It is JD Wetherspoons.
No, it's JD Wetherspoon. Yeah. But it's his spoon. Wetherspoons.
Yeah. Anyway, news. There is actually this news. JD Wetherspoon and his chain of pubs, plural and possessive, within the Heineken range of products, which from a cider perspective is Strongbow, like the main sort of draft product. They are gone, ending like a sort of 40-odd year relationship. And so the draft cider that is now going to be available in the circa however many 100 Wetherspoon pubs across the country is Stowford Press from Western Cider, which is amazing and fantastic for them. I obviously have I'm a big admirer of Westerns, partly because they're the cider maker in the village of Muchmarkel, just next door to Dimmock, but also they, to my knowledge, are the largest maker of cider from freshly pressed apples anywhere in the world, not just in the UK, anywhere in the world. So they've got over 130 200,000 litre stainless steel tanks that they fill up to the brim with juice, they ferment it, and it sits there and it stores and it matures, and then they draw it down as and when they need it. So to have a cider on tap that's made from fresh pressed juice is a pretty awesome thing, I think. So well done, Western.
Well, it's also, for a podcast like ours, like we don't usually deal with the Heinekens, the Strongbows, the Wetherspoonses. So to have Wetherspoons' issue with Strongbow, and now like companies like Stowford Press, there's a big change in how we talk about makers, but also it's important because although they may not be our immediate cider that we grab, for the majority of people in the UK, that's their kind of stake on cider. That's what they know cider as. And to have something as big as the biggest chain in the UK really changing their cider output, that's going to be a lot of people's sort of interaction with cider dramatically changed, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a really positive thing.
Definitely. Just, and also, I don't think we would go into every pub that we go into and expect to be served wild fermented pet nat barrel aged cider at any point, So
I do
for $2.10 a pint.
Gabe does. That's why no one invites him out. But you like, if you're just going out for a pint with someone and they're like, "Oh, should we meet in the Spoons?" Okay, yep, let's do that. And the fact that they're going to get higher juice content, better made cider is I think is important, and it's great, and it should be celebrated.
Totally. Well done, Westerns. So that was the big UK news. And then in the USA, well, it's CiderCon, which should be probably happening right about now. Alas, I had intended and hoped to go out and attend.
Wait, is the news that you're not going? Is that the news?
No.
Alas, the main character.
Because everyone else is still going.
It's a little addition to the fact that CiderCon is taking place between the 1st and the 4th of February in Richmond, Virginia, world's largest cider gathering.
Oh, Gabe.
What can I say?
Alas, if you hadn't have said alas and it made it like a personal, it just sounded like you were like, well, news is, chaps, I'm not going to
might as well be cancelled. Michelle McGrath, pull the plug.
Well, alas.
Martin.
So CiderCon, world's largest cider gathering, taking place in Richmond, Virginia. It's for anybody who is in the USA who is a cider maker or involved in the cider industry, or a distributor, or you are or a server, or you're just interested in learning a little bit more. It's well worth a visit. It's such a great fun opportunity to meet people with the industry, and there's technical talks, and there's sort of marketing sessions, more sort of commercial things, and then there's obviously the social hangout events and all the evening activities. So definitely worth a look, and hopefully I'll be there in 2023.
So the news next year is that maybe the main character will be there. So
yeah, we'll reveal that in a year's time.
Yes. I'm gutted that obviously things aren't different and that we can't all go. I don't think I'd have had the money to go anyway. But alas, I was happy last year that the online component of it was super accessible and allowed in a pandemic access to information. Is that happening on the same level, or do we not know yet? What's the deal?
I believe that there is no online platform element to CiderCon this year, whether that be people sort of dialing in to present, or whether there being sessions that are sort of presented in an online capacity. I don't know whether there's any recordings or whether there's going to be any kind of digital element that will be sort of put out post the event. I don't know, but so you're absolutely right. Certainly from a UK perspective, or from the perspective of anybody who can't go, that was such a fantastic opportunity to participate in the event, and likewise CraftCon in the UK too. But hopefully that will be in person this year. So we will see. Scott, you'll have to come over for CraftCon.
Sounds good.
Oh, okay.
In next week's news, Scott doesn't make CraftCon.
Speaking of news that isn't really news but might be, Grant, I saw a Instagram post, something about a cider salon and Scotland.
I spoke with Rose Murray Brown, who's a journalist for the Scotsman, who recently featured Little Pomona in she's usually she is known as a wine writer and has started writing about ciders, and she's doing a piece which by the time this episode's out will probably have been published on Scottish cider, and we spoke about maybe doing a kind of Scottish cider salon or an equivalent event up here that celebrates not just Scottish cider. I want to kind of make that clear. It wouldn't just be Scottish cider, because I think it'd be important to kind of bring in the cider makers that people have been buying and drinking up here that they recognise, because it's still up here. The whole cider making industry is very young. So she and I and Jay discussed doing something up here in the East Nook, where we would invite cider makers and cider drinkers to come and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the what new releases they have. What time of year it'll happen, who knows? Whether it'll happen at all, who knows? But Rose announced it on Instagram after a 2-minute conversation, so that was helpful.
Yeah, but that means that's good, because it means you have to do it. And what just from hearing that, what I'm excited about is, as an outsider, all those things. I get locality, and I as a Cornish guy, I love that. But esoteric creation isn't as good in my eyes as esoteric consumption. So what the locals are drinking is more powerful than just knowing that it's all the local producers, and knowing that you're bringing that focus to quality cider to such a corner of the country as that is just wonderful. And live neutral cider hotel there. Are we sure?
Probably. I mean, I think I can probably find a 13 capacity room that we could sell out. But
everyone going to buy a ticket. Everyone going to buy a ticket, and they're like, "Hang on, isn't this free with the Dimmock Red subscription? I feel like we're going to lose money."
Could be.
Could be. There's one guy there from the US who's come all the
Chuck,
way.
come on, Chuck. Off you come.
Chuck. Hey, I'm here
Chuck,
for the 1-to-1.
Yeah, Chuck, it isn't in Wills. It's in Scotland. That's where you got to go.
Yeah, no, watch this space. Definitely something I want to do. Definitely something I'm interested in. And I think could do really well up here. You know, people have taken to the cider shop to able, in a way that neither of us would have expected or would have taken for granted. So I think it's exciting to be able to do something, a little bit out of the city as well.
Yeah,
we could do something in Edinburgh or Glasgow, but it's like, well, we opened the shop here, so fuck it, let's just do it here. So yeah,
completely agree that that it shouldn't be solely Scottish cider makers. But the great thing is that there are so many now that you almost could. It's absolutely, the number of producers making great stuff is awesome. And here's news: hasn't a sort of new cider maker come to the fold? Fleming's Fife Cider.
Oh. Is that a poem on a label,
is.
or is that just bad internet?
No, that is a list of all the towns that the apples have come from.
Oh, yes, Robbie.
Jesus, so this is Robbie's sort of hobby home blend cider, and the label artwork by his daughter Clara Fleming, age 2. Not all the writing, but. So
she's written a whole map.
Wow, her vocabulary is great. No, Witherspoon.
No, she's scribbled crayons. Can you see she scribbled with crayons? An experiment of blends from different pressings, hints of hickory and whiskey from chips used during maturation. 100% apple juice, wild fermentation, no added sulfite.
Wow, let's lean into it. 2 words to describe it. You don't have to go in too deep. Let's see.
Ooh.
Woody acid.
That is the sequel to Toy Story 4 that no one knew they needed.
To infinity. And that's it.
And never to return.
Just to infinity.
Yes, it's gone.
Woody and acid.
Oh, God.
No, yeah, Fleming's
Bravo.
Fife Cider is Bertie Bob Fleeman on Instagram. Well, Fleming's Fife Cider, he's started his cider Instagram. But there's lots of people up in Scotland doing, I think people are starting to realise all they need are apples, and a passion for it, and you can make some cider.
Apples and passion, and as long as passion isn't the predominant ingredient, it'll pass Gabe's minimum juice content.
35% passion, everybody. 35% passion. Well, there we go. That's a wrap on this week's news that's been most about me as well. Now it's time to get on to our chat with Mr. Olly Smith. It's time to bring on our special guest. This week, we are speaking to a national treasure, the drinks expert on Weekend TV's favourite cooking, drinking and chatting show. Alas, we're not interviewing me. Instead, it's someone who has grown from being a wine spurt.
Keep that in. Keep going.
I am a wine spurt. It's true.
Instead, it's someone who's grown from being a wine expert to encompassing beer, cocktails, and cider. An award-winning communicator, author, and podcast host, he is the jolliest drinks expert in town. Today, joining us at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's Olly Smith.
Hello. Oh, thank you for that
Olly.
lovely introduction, Gabe. I mean, national treasure. You're a national treasure, Gabe. That's the truth of it. I've come armed.
Not yet.
What's
I reckon.
this? What's this?
I'll get to national treasure status when I get to have lunch with Gary Barlow.
Oh.
that is.
Yeah, we can discuss that.
I would bring it down a little bit, Gabe. You know, but I guess
Gary Barlow's
Really?
not going to get your call, Gabe.
No. maybe Jason
No,
Orange.
I'm not saying that. Who knew that Jason Orange was such a fan of wild fermented tannic-driven ciders? It was unexpected. Anyway, Olly, thank you very much, dear friend, for joining us here at the Cider Hotel. How are you, good sir? How is 2022 treating you?
So far, it has been an absolute rampage. It's been magnificent. I'm glad to report my parents still think you're the loveliest man alive, Gabe. That's the most important thing to
very
say.
kind.
My parents met
Love them
Gabe.
too.
We were on a cider tour of Gloucestershire, Herefordshire and Devon. And Gabe very sweetly took me to a cidery that was literally moments from my parents' house. And then he gate crashed their lives and refused to leave. It got a bit awkward, but they've taken him on and it's all going extremely well.
Adopt
Yeah,
a Gabe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I say the parents have always liked me, even when I was a teenager, far more than the daughters or the sons, in fact, actually. It was just all about talking about time, team, and geological formations. Anyway, let's move on. I've moved on, and I found cider, and that's all I need, and my lovely girlfriend as well. Let's bring it back to drinks. Well, let's bring it to wine first of all, Olly, because most people in the UK will know you for being that lovely, smiley, cherubic face on TV that is thrusting wine down our throats in a very, very nice and lovely way that we want to. How did you and the whole wine game start off?
It's a really good question, Gabe. It began for me working in a wine shop. And that led obliquely to the thrusting you mentioned some years later. But no, first and foremost, I started out as a Saturday job delivering boxes, and I was kind of intrigued by the conversations that were going on around the wine, and I didn't know a thing about it. You know, at home, my parents didn't really drink it. My mates certainly didn't, you know, at that age. But I found the idea that things could taste different depending on where they came from and who made them and all the cultural stuff surrounding them really fascinating. And also, I became quite quickly entranced by the idea of great value and not having to spend a fortune to enjoy something really delicious. Yeah. And that, again, you know, that coincided with wine becoming more, it was kind of more widely available, I guess, because it was something that had kind of been very much for a certain set, I think, up until this point, up until the sort of 80s and 90s. And suddenly, this just cascade of wine opened up new friendships, new places to visit, new ideas, and I was completely entranced by it. So the short answer to the question is I entered a competition some years later called Wine Idol, which was a bit like Pop Idol, except no one saw it. It's true. And I managed to get down from about 6,000 people entered initially. And I got down to the last 10 and the last 3. And I was really nervous about what would happen in the event that I might go through, because my wife, Sophie, was heavily pregnant with our first daughter, Ruby, at the time. And, and I had a pretty good career. I'd taken a bit of a segue away from delivering boxes of wine into writing for kids animation. So I was writing for the likes of Pingu and Charlie and Lola, and even A Solitary Marvellous Day, helping out with Wallace and Gromit's movie, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. If you wait long enough in the credits, you can find my name. You may need a magnifying glass and a loop and just really close up to the screen, but I am there. But then,
we're going to do that.
You must have a little screenshot. But then wine came knocking, and honestly, the kind of all those things came together in the sense that I developed a craft of writing scripts and conveying, albeit, fairly nonsensical information, but I channeled that into wine and tried to make it entertaining. And I've just been really, really glad to meet the people I have, do the things I've done, and for people to trust your recommendations, as you all well know, is the loveliest thing in the world. When people go out and actually act on one of your suggestions and then tell you, yeah, you know what, I really had a great time. I kind of tasted beyond my normal frontier of flavour. I went behind enemy wines. That's the sort of thing you really want people to tell you. And then it expanded into the whole world of drinks. drinks. And yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled with it, Gabe. I've just recently done a cocktail book, which I'm pleased to say has done well. And it's very gratifying. It's all just the world of drinks, basically, and I'm sure people listening will already know this as fans of the Neutral Cider Hotel. It's just flipping tremendous. That's the bottom line. I don't really mind whether it's wine, whether it's cider, whether it's a craft beer, or whether it's a fantastic spirit, or there's increasingly some interesting non-alcoholic work coming out. This is the dream. It's to share the good stuff.
Absolutely. What I want to know is what happened to the other finalists of Wine Idol. Where are they now? What are they doing? What's their trajectory? Could we do a documentary about
do you know, I think
those that didn't make the cut?
They were both really good. The last three, I think it was me, Holly Sharp, who I think she works, if it's not Leanne, I think it's just Irene Brooks. I think it might be, but she's absolutely brilliant and in the wine trade, and we're still in touch. And then there was another guy, Henry, who I have seen in the world of booze, and he's out there too. And there's a few more.
But he's no Olly Smith, though, is he?
I don't know. He was a lovely chap.
Yeah.
They were all so lovely, and at the end of the day, I think it was one of those things that the winning prize, was it was an audition to go on Great Food Live, which was a satellite food show. So you didn't even kind of get a guaranteed telly gig or anything like that. And so I had to go and do the audition. And the other part of the prize was, they said it was a year's supply of wine. Well, look, 72 bottles in my book. That's a weekend at Smith Towers. That just isn't a year at all. I don't know in what universe they're living.
How you mentioned when you first started getting into wine, that there wasn't as much, it wasn't as accessible maybe as it is now. How has it changed over the years, specifically in the UK, in terms of accessibility and affordability as well?
It's a really good question, Grant, because there's something that's happened that I'm really happy about, and also that's brought its own unique sort of challenges. So the widely available aspect really was down to the supermarkets. So prices came down, styles of wine were in our hands that we'd never seen before, like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It tasted like exuberant passion fruit juice, and everybody's really excited about that. That was wonderful. I think the sort of next stage of that is trying to talk a bit more about the values of what goes on behind the bottle and how that might kind of impact your life, because we're all much more aware now of things like our carbon footprint, of the impact of herbicides and pesticides in any farming, in any agriculture, of intensive farming versus more enlightened styles, where you steward the land for the next generation. So all of that stuff, in my view, is being spoken about, but it can never be spoken about too much. And so I'm really happy that wine has found a wider audience. I think realistically, it would be lovely to think that, as well as our kitchen table bottles that we really know and enjoy, that we are prepared to splash out and keep those wonderful places going, the artisan producers, growers, and the cultures that are all around the world that can deliver, truly magical bottles. And I'm not saying you have to spend a fortune, because you really don't, actually. You can find amazing wines from great independent retailers and good people online. I'll give you an example, the Wine Society here in the UK. You have to pay, I think it's 40 quid to join, but you get 20 quid off your first order. And then thereon, you just get a phenomenal selection of really enlightened buying from a great team who are absolutely leading the pack. So there are ways to do it. I just think, that the dual aspect of accessibility and affordability shouldn't, just completely cloud all of the other issues that I think is important to cover with any kind of farm product.
Mm. And so, given the order that your start in drinks was from the wine perspective, where does cider come into this? Was this something you discovered on your booze journey, or were there other an earlier genesis?
Yeah, I think it's always been an earlier genesis. I think my toes were dunked in cider when I was born, Gabe. I always loved it. To be honest,
are you from Gloucestershire?
Yeah,
well, that's the okay.
The thing is, I always loved it, and I always instinctively. So a lot of people will talk about the kind of the fizzy stuff that they bought in big bottles and sat on park benches. That never happened to me. I went straight for the stuff in jerry cans that you could melt bits of your body with. I always loved farmhouse cider right from the off. I found there was something about the acidity to it that I really enjoyed. I've always liked sharp flavours. Growing up, I remember, things like salt and vinegar crisps to me the first time I had them. I mean, it's like, hearing Led Zeppelin for the first time. You're like, wow, there's more of this stuff. There's loads of people doing this. This is amazing. And I think that was the draw for farmhouse cider. But wherever I went from quite an early age in my drinking career, you know, from obviously 18 on, I would always try all the beers that I possibly could locally. I would always try and find the ciders that were not available down at the supermarket or not available, you know, just willy-nilly, but you could actually go and meet someone and find out about, because I kind of wanted to reach deeper, because I wondered if there was always going to be better stuff just beyond, you know, what you could find easily. And I think you can, I really do. And recently, Gabe very kindly took me on a wonderful cider tour around Herefordshire and Gloucestershire and Devon. And it was so interesting to me to meet such a diverse array of extraordinary people, all locked into the same brilliant game of creating fantastically tasty and really arresting bottles. I loved it, Gabe.
Absolutely.
Loved it.
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to host you and to show you around. It's a great looking through the lens of you as to where and how cider has changed over the course of time and the opportunities and occasions. Just going back to the dunking your toes in cider, I do remember actually that in 1275 there is a record of babies being baptised in Sussex, which I believe is where you live.
I am here right now. I'm in Sussex. This is amazing.
There you go. So baptise a child.
You didn't say baptised in cider, you just said baptised. So there are records, Ollie, of
in
religion,
cider.
actually.
Wow. You can see I'm a professional podcast host here.
On cider Spurt.
Now, did I hear you opening up a bottle and pouring something?
You did, because you very kindly sent me First Waltz 2019 Pet Nat. 7.3%. Oh, sound the cider horn.
Whoa, hang on. What? Hang on.
It.
Is that the bugle of cider joy? Was that if we say the words First Waltz?
It's got its own bugle.
I've got my own bugle. I mean, I never leave home without a bugle. Hang on, I'll do it again.
Hold on, that's...
I mean, it sounds like it sounds like it wants to be more happy than it is. It doesn't sound very well, does it? No, we're not going to do that.
It sounds like you've gone back to writing Pingu.
Are you sure you're working?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, who is this? Little Pomona, is it?
Well, this is, I mean, really, the story with this belongs to Grant. Please, Grant,
Yes.
come on.
So
tell us.
So I have a cider distribution company called Restock, which doesn't have a sound, I don't think, actually. Also have a cider shop called Able. Yes. So I've been working with James and Susanna, who I know you've met and you're aware of Little Pomona. And James approached me and said, do you want to do an exclusive cider? To which I obviously said, yes, please. I'm very excited about that. And I basically sent him a brief. Said, right, okay, this is what I want. I want, because I'm not a cider maker. It's funny how many people ask you that. I don't know if many people ask you as well. Oh, have you ever thought about making wine? It's like, no. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? It's an amazing skill set, and it's a life of devotion.
Yeah. And it's oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah. So I sent him some sort of tasting notes, and this is what they came back with, and straight away I was like, yes, please. So what we've got here, Ellis Bitter and Dabanet apples from Little Pomona, Perry pears from Tawny's farm in Dimmock, Gabe's stomping ground.
Ollie, that is the Perry pear orchard that I took you to. You have been there. You've seen the trees. You've smelt.
When were you there?
In November?
In October.
Oh, right.
It's October. Yeah. So about 4 or 5 months ago. Yeah. It was beautiful, and that Perry pear, that the spread of them actually, it hasn't left me. I've thought a lot about those kinds of trees and I don't know. I found one, in my parents' garden that doesn't produce very much anymore, but I've now looked at it with completely different eyes. I think it's probably quite old. I think they should be national monuments. I really do. I think they should be preserved and protected. I think people are starting to do this for our ancient yew trees, that some of which are as old as the pyramids, and that's fantastic. But, fruit producing trees like that, absolutely incredible.
Stunning,
so
isn't it? And also
it really is. Yeah.
Also a small dash of cryo-conditioned Egremont russet juice. So you mentioned kind of, you mentioned acid earlier, and that was something that I'd said to James and Susanna. I was like, I want some nice jangly acid in there, some kind of grapefruit pith. Definitely pet nat to give it a little bit of a lift. I think I did request not a bourbon barrel, which he ignored. But I think it's thankfully I feel like that sort of helps as well. And it's not too. Yeah. I always struggle with the kind of real vanilla notes.
I found when the ciders I've tasted in bourbon barrels, I think that the ones I've not had as wide an experience as you guys, but the ones I've tasted, I think you have to treat it really carefully, because I think there is a danger that it can act as a bit of a muffler over the electrifying side of cider, and this is certainly balanced and beautiful. And actually, I think the bourbon cask really works. It's there, but it's textural and it's gives it some depth, but it's like grabbing onto the sort of the most vivid citrus monorail of your life and holding on for dear life. That is charging across my palate with great delight.
Oh, beautiful.
That's what you pay for. That's what you get them on for.
Yeah, you see, I would have said, taste lush. See, that's what you get with Ciderologist. I know. Rather than, I've got so much to learn.
I know, so Gabe, you're holding us back. You really don't do enough for cider.
Come on, Ollie. I was just checking. You didn't know, and I didn't know that you actually had another link to Dimmock. Very, very spuriously, obviously. Your one day of working on Wallace and Gromit's Curse of the Were Rabbit, the cheese that gets wafted over what's its nose at the very end is Stinking
Did you say
Bishop.
what's its nose?
Gromit.
What's
his name?
Or is it
Wallace and
Gromit? Yeah, one of them's unconscious. Yeah.
What's it in
What's it in Grismo?
Gromdu?
You really did your research.
Curse of the Were
You really
Rabbit.
did your research for this one, didn't you?
What's a werewolf?
No, it's a werewolf.
I used to call him a werewolf.
Well, it doesn't matter. Just tell him the fact about the cheese.
Anyway, yeah, sorry.
So someone else can ask a
Stinky
question.
Bishop is from Dimmock. I'm from Dimmock. You love Dimmock. Dimmock is Dimmock. You've been to Dimmock. Thank you.
Oh
DM.
my God, Gabe.
I need to get better at this, don't I?
Let's link it to animation in a sort of storytelling. Is there any film, Ollie, that you can think of that has done wine justice in your eyes?
Oh, great question. I mean, I guess I'd jump straight in on Withnail and I. Yes. Because it's not in the sense that it hasn't done wine justice, but certainly there was a reverence for it somewhere deep buried in the script. I mean, it's a bit of a soak up. However, I do have affection for the movie because they pluck out moments of great vintages and they talk, about wine with sort of wild abandon. But it's I guess Uncle Monty who just has that wonderful, my boys, yeah. And if you haven't seen the movie, it's basically a story of two out-of-work actors who go on holiday by mistake to the Lake District, borrowing their very kind of theatrical uncle's cottage. And it's one of those movies that there's a lot of alcohol reference in it. There's a lot of kind of heading to the pub, sculling lots of booze. But yeah, in terms of wine, I think in addition to the hedonism and the excess, there is also a real kind of, what's the word? It's kind of almost a lyrical feeling about the mood it can invoke and the closeness it can bring, even if it, gets a little bit too close for comfort at times for those poor guys staying in Uncle Monty's cottage. But what a movie! What a movie!
Of course, there's obviously the cider over ice reference as well.
Oh, Ice in the Cider, yeah.
Predates Magners by a good sort of 25 years or something like that. Quite impressive, really.
Yeah, Withnail invented Ice in the Cider. Of course he did.
They did.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's some cider references. I mean, Fantastic Mr. Fox has got a lot of cider in it.
Yeah. It does.
With the rat.
It does. I did. I actually, obviously, Martin Grant and producer Scott will remember that I did actually do a quote from that movie in a quiz. If I can remember it, we don't take too kindly to cider poachers around here.
There you go. That was alarmingly close as well.
Thank you.
Willem Dafoe will, look to his laurels.
I know. He is quaking in his Oscar-winning boots.
Sounded more to me like Harvey Keitel in Taxi Driver, though. That had a bit more like weird.
I'll take that.
I mean, it's not an enjoyable character, but there you go. But
do you still do any writing for animation or anything, Ollie, or strictly Strictly drinks writing.
I
these
do
days.
get asked, Grant. Occasionally I do get asked on projects, and I'm often tempted. But the truth of it hitherto is that I just haven't had the moment for it. But I would love to, and I've got some ideas knocking around. I've got various notebooks in my life, where over the years I've kind of written down concepts for series ideas, for movie ideas. I think the closest I've ever come would be to kind of get back together with Pingu, because it wasn't that we broke up, it wasn't that like that at all. It was just
reasons.
I think I ended up it was spend more time with our families. No, we had a wonderful kind of 3-series outing with Pingu, and I often looked to see if there was a possibility of developing the idea on into something, maybe longer form or feature length or a Christmas special. And I think Johnny Depp's version as a movie is still on track. I kind of keep a beady eye out on these things, but I did not get the call. I mean, there I am. I know, it's shocking. But if you do go along to your local DVD shop, if there's still such a thing in existence, Pingu and the Toy Shop and Pingu Gets Lost are 2 compilations which both feature my episodes on the front cover. Very proud of that. I got 0 royalties, so don't buy it.
Pingu Gets Lost, the one where it's like the nightmare one, where he's looking at all the ice sculpture kind of things, or is that? Yeah. That
that's the one. He goes into the maze. Yeah. Really?
Yeah,
nice.
It came out in 2012, Martin.
Yeah, it was quite late. It was, he got lost in a maze, and then there was sort of he looked at things in a funny way, and he got out by using his jumper that is, I think Pinga, his sister, or someone had knitted for him. But I know I had great fun with that. It was always kind of how you could put sort of this animated character who didn't speak, a language that you understood, in situations where you could have strong empathy either as a growing mind, as a young person, or as a parent, and you could all watch it together. And I kind of treated it like, writing silent movies like Laurel and Hardy or any of those things. And so, if you get the physical gags in, you're halfway there. But I'm sorry it terrified you. Looking back.
Producer Scott, can we just check in first of all for our lovely US listening contingent? Do you think they have any idea what Pingu is?
No, on both.
This is going to be fun. How do we describe?
Okay, I've got this.
Pingu?
I've got this.
Okay,
Olly. Exactly. He makes that noise. End of.
Okay, got it.
So Pingu is
Thank you very much.
He was an animated. He's a plasticine penguin living in the North Pole. His best friend is Robbie the seal. He lives in an ice hut with Pinga, his sister, who's very naughty, his mum and dad, and there's all sorts of lovely generic characters that you meet along the way, like the postman and the teacher, and they all speak in a kind of nonsense language that was an amalgam of various different things. So it wasn't kind of like there was one distinct way of doing it, but it's very cheery, and there's always a kind of a wonderful sense of camaraderie and saving the day about it. So it didn't matter what scrapes they got into. Pinga, I mean, he could get his little flipper trapped in a paint pot, all hell could break loose, but somehow the hut always needed redecorating in that shade of splattered pink anyway, so it was all fine. It was all rather lovely, Scott. It was one of those kind of preschool animations that it was a bit of an icon in the UK, and actually I think he's still fairly popular in Japan as well, Pingu. But I really loved working, with those kind of skill sets, because when you're stripped of language and you have to tell a story by literally putting things and objects around, it's delightful.
When you started writing that, did you have kids already, or was that something afterwards?
No, that's a great question, Scott, though. No, I didn't. And it was a really interesting one, because it's random. I kind of specialized in animation just because I seemed to get the jobs doing it initially, if I'm completely honest. But then I did specialize in it properly. And I really enjoyed writing in a way that would kind of draw in just a sort of without, it's not educational. I'm not trying to say that it would kind of give them a fable or something. It was more just they would have a really good time, and sometimes with their mum and dad watching it as well. So I did enjoy that, and I did a lot of kind of research at the time into whether it was preschool or what age group you're writing for. It was really key to get that right. So yeah, it was a very specific skill set to go into before then just flying off Animation Island and heading straight for Wine Mountain and skiing down it for the rest of my life.
It's interesting you talk about language in a kind of wordless child's animation, because it's something we talk about quite a lot in Cider, and I just wondered what you think Cider could learn from wine in its use of language and its lexicon, because I feel like it's something that Cider maybe suffers from a lack of understanding in.
That is a fantastic area to talk about, because the first and foremost, I think anybody's vernacular, anybody's own way of talking about it has got to be the right way. There are systematic approaches to talking about wine, and the Wine and Spirit Education Trust do a fantastic job of giving people their grounding. But what I try to sort of get people to understand is nobody can do the job better than you or more you than you. So if you've got a specific angle or a way that it makes you feel, particularly I think feelings is something that, we're happy to talk about how movies or TV or albums, oh man, it really made me howl out loud with laughter, or that stayed with me for days. I was gutted, I get it, it's a completely different thing, but at the same time, I do feel moved by certain stories behind bottles or certain flavors. They have their associations. So I think keep it informal for sure. Because for me, there's no doubt that cider has all of the complexity that any drink has, and it, without question, has more than enough heritage to warrant, the greatest attention with language. And equally, I think you can have a lot of fun with trying to get people to understand that if you're somebody who's just, going down the supermarket and buying your favorite bottle of whatever it is, then they're great stuff. But check this stuff out as well, because you may well really enjoy it. And I think the more you show how engaged you are with it, and how engaged the people who are making it are, I think the better. And also kind of once you've, done your sort of you-ness with the way you speak about it, this is going to sound a bit counterintuitive, but kind of get out of the way of the bottle. Remember that it's always about the liquid. It's always about the apples. It's always about, there's an aspect that is not you that you can always draw on. I think the more truthful you are and the more you engage with that and you feel it truthfully through your bones, then people will really sit up and pay attention. And that's certainly what I feel when I'm learning about stuff I don't know so much about. I love it when people are just speaking with such abandon and passion and delight. And obviously insight and education is, very important as well. But really, truthfully, it's just about grabbing as many people as possible and making them feel like they're part of the gang. There's no rules, there's no barrier to entry. That's the most important.
Yeah. Have you found that the wine world can be an intimidating place at times? Certainly for newcomers. You said you first approached it with zero experience. So
de-hatting.
That's fine. Yeah, I just say you first.
It's getting serious.
You first approached it with zero experience. Was that an intimidating situation to be in?
Yeah, most definitely. It really was. And I did, after that, do my kind of Wine and Spirit Education Trust certificates. But you absolutely, the first time I went to wine tastings, I didn't know the etiquette, the rules, the kind of, the system. There's always a system, right? In any job, in any kind of, office environment, effectively, or any collegiate structure. And I really felt, that there was definitely a way that things had been done. And I think a lot of people probably weren't that thrilled when I spoke about wine as informally as I did. I think maybe people thought I was being disrespectful, but I would certainly argue the opposite and say, actually, I'm just really trusting the people I'm talking to make their own minds up, And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was I really didn't want it to be a price issue or certainly not a class issue or a social issue. I really wanted people to feel like it was for them. My motto from early on was all for wine and wine for all. And it's still kind of emblazoned across my website, because it's just, that's exactly what I'm all about. I really want to find the perfect bottle for you, for anybody, and everybody's different, and I want to listen to what you like. I want to try and find out as much as I can about you, what the circumstances of the recommendation are, whether it's a meal you're going to have or which shop you're going to that night, or you might happen to be into Chilean wine or a particular grape. I want to get all the information and then absolutely deliver you something that's so magical you just had the best time of your life. And it's really that simple. But I think, do you find that with cider? Do you find that there is a kind of wine is more collegiate now, I will say, and it's been far more opened up, which is great to see. So I'm speaking about 10, 15 years ago when I began. I definitely did find I had to brook relationships and build my way in effectively. Yeah. But I think if you're coming into the drinks trade now, I would hope, certainly with things like cider, I'd hope you're going to tell me that actually, the more voices, the merrier. And, there is a real hunger for listening to people.
No, it's mine only. Yeah. It can only be for me. Everybody else get lost.
But it kind of used to be like that with wine. It would be an expert telling you if you didn't like this, you were wrong, and I just never understood that.
That's why I won't buy Ciderology by Gabe Cook, because it's like having a dictator.
What, this old thing here that I'm holding up? And I'll just flutter the pages over my microphone. It's so So good. What a great book. What is cider? Many things to many people on page 20. Well said, Gabe. Well said.
Thank you very much. What seems to me is that you've got many a snappy soundbite and motto, mostly because wine just sounds like lots of other words. Behind enemy wines, all for wine and wine for all. What do you do with cider?
That's very true. That's very true.
That's why I just go, cider is lush. That's all I got at the moment. Help me, please. What would Pingu say? What would Pingu say about cider? How would Pingu describe this cider? What would be the tasting notes for First Waltz?
The thing is, I would write an extensive tasting note, and then he would just get trapped in a barrel and roll down an iceberg and go swimming with his friend Robbie the Seal. That would be his entire response to it. It's a great question, though. What can you do? I mean, cider, how do you talk about it, Gabe? Because I love, joking aside, I think Modern British Cider is a great book, and I really love the way you talk about it on the box. Well, that was I love the gong.
Gratuitous plug noise. That's what that is.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh.
So if I say Modern British Cider, or if I were to say Ciderology, or if I were to say Il Mondo del Cidro.
What about if I say The Home Cocktail Bible? I don't get one. That's a shameless gratuitous plug.
Get working on that, Scott. We go.
Oh, whoa! That's like
even
that's
wine's
like
got. He's even got better sound effects before.
I felt like a unicorn horn sprouting from my forehead. I felt springs in my hooves, rainbows coming out of my armpits. That was just beautiful. Thing of joy. I think the sky's the limit with
say
language.
It again, and he'll do it again.
Yeah,
like this is your gratuitous plug opportunity.
The Home Cocktail Bible. What a book.
Is that another horn? I don't know if you're allowed to.
It appears to be.
Another horn, or are you happy to see me?
But no, it's two of them. But I just think now I look like a goat. I was looking like a wonderful unicorn, like a really noble mythical beast, and now I'm just a shambles. I'm staggering around. Never mind.
Well, in terms of where does one start with communicating? It's that wine and cider come from completely different points. So for you, with wine, it was trying to get it across to people that cider can be a drink for everybody, that there are these different drinks for different occasions. It doesn't have to be elitist. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be just plainly enjoyable on simple kind of occasions, that it doesn't have to be confusing or scary. With cider, it's trying to break the broader preconceptions that cider relates to park bench, vomit-laden experiences, rough, rustic farmhouses falling into ditches, well, yeah, that's about it, really. So it started from the point of trying to present it, not sort of bringing down and making it accessible because it's perceived to be it's not something for them. It's something that they don't necessarily always want to try.
I think cider, has all the complexity, all the finesse, all the food pairing possibilities of any great drink. And I'm entirely with you on that mission, because I think what I would say that there's something in common there is that I think really, really tremendous cider is still incredibly good value. When I tasted that Perry that we tasted at Lost and what was it called? It was
Find and Foster.
Sorry, thank you. Find and Foster. Yeah, Find and Foster. When we tasted that Perry at Find and Foster, I was absolutely blown away by it. And I bought six or seven bottles on the spot that did actually arrive in time for Christmas, which was great. And I think it was like 20 quid a bottle. But in comparison to some really high-end fizz that you might buy from a really, the Champagne region, for example, or an English sparkling wine, which are amazing. I'm not going to diss them, but it gave me absolutely the same amount of delight, and if not a little bit more, because it was something so treasurable, so deft, so delicate, and I was really happy to pop them on at Christmas time with my family. So, yeah, I kind of think having drinks that are of that caliber, and we've talked about Tom Oliver's wonderful work, as I'm sure you have on the show. That to me is like these
I'm not quite sure who you're talking about.
Never heard of him. They're graspable. Do you know what I mean? They're not like, you don't have to save up a month's pay packet. You can come together with a mate or two and get some of the best. Whereas, with some of the top wines in the world, well, good luck. Some of them are hundreds of pounds and thousands, and that doesn't seem to be, to me, accessible to very many people at all. Whereas cider, I mean, you guys would be better placed to say it, but what would, it's tens of pounds, isn't it? Rather than hundreds.
The problem is, within that structure, you've also got a lot of people that are outside of it coming in that still equate alcohol by volume with the price as value. So they go 20 quid for a 5% No, because I can get a 14% bottle of red. And you're like, that's not how they value wine. How have you got this far in life? What are we, what? I've sold beer, wine and cider in a bottle shop, and it is every now and then you come across someone, you're like, I cannot explain to you why you should buy this then. Like I just don't know what to say.
I think that's probably fair, Martin, because it's such a different, line, and it's where a lot of people maybe begin with drinks. I certainly remember going down the wine aisles when I was learning about wine, and I found, I was looking for higher alcohol from Australia in particular for Shiraz, because I felt like I was getting more bang for my buck, more flavour. So I get that. But I rapidly kind of went through that and realised that was just, it was not indicative of quality. It was indicative of alcohol, yes, but that's not the same thing. So I think I totally take the point. I think that's absolutely right. But isn't that the joy of getting them through the door of the bottle shop in the first place? So that you hope that they may at some point think, you know what, I'm going to pop back. That guy seemed really nice. And we talked about, Enya's first album, Watermark, which I will defend to my dying day as a work of true genius. And don't get me started on Shepherd's Moons. That's also just miraculous.
That's
absolutely miraculous.
My wife's bath song is an Enya song, I think, from Shepherd's Moon.
Shepherd's Moons. I'm delighted. Grant, I think this might be the first vicarious agreement. I mean, I know you're not agreeing, but your wife is. That I've ever had on the Enya proxy.
I like how you say the first as if it's not going to be the last.
There's only one other person on this planet who I know I could bring into this discussion who would immediately jump in. Well, it could have been Enya. Okay, there's two. There's Enya, and then there's my brother Will, and actually maybe my dad. I don't know. We'll have to test him out. He probably can't remember what it was, but he certainly seemed happy enough when we used to listen to it playing Monopoly night after night.
Let's all have a bath and find out, shall we?
I'm in. I think, can I insist that we wear wetsuits? We could have an Apple logo on the front, that's fine.
Okay,
but otherwise it would be weird. I think if we're in the bath wearing wetsuits with an Apple logo, listening to Enya, that's not weird. But any other scenario would be weird.
Trying to cram into a domestic bath where sail away.
Yes. Sail away,
If this turns up in a future Pingu episode, I'm coming for royalties.
We want our royalties. Music is something that's obviously quite important to you, Olly. You've mentioned it when we were sort of hanging out, and you happen to be in the company of musical aficionados here. Did you know that producer Scott actually produced Questlove's podcast? Some years ago.
Days ago, yeah.
Producer Scott, some days ago. Martin has an encyclopedic knowledge of music, and Grant indeed was in a band, and I like music. So how does music and wine, or your passion for music and wine or drinks, kind of like mingle, do you think?
It's a really nice one, that, because I think I'm lucky because my dad was a music teacher, and growing up music was always in the house. My mum was a nurse, so if ever I did fall over while listening to Burt Camford and other light orchestral magnificence, she would nurse me back to health. But I from an early age I was kind of exposed to quite a wide range of stuff. There was classical, there was a bit of jazz, there was pop, obviously from mates at school, and rock and everything else. And I went through a long prog rock phase, notably a big fan of Marillion during the Fish era. Followed them as much as I possibly could. Was absolutely devastated, of course, when he left. We won't talk about that now because the tears will begin to flow. But I think to sort of put it succinctly, I think really my love of music. I have a lovely big record collection. I love going to gigs. I used to sing a bit in a choir years and years ago, and then kind of did gigs and played the guitar and all that stuff. But I just think my appreciation for that is probably as wide as my appreciation for the drinks trade, really, because I'm always curious and I'm rarely disappointed, because I can always find a way to kind of think, you know what, even if it's not like massively to my taste at this particular minute, it's an opportunity to just learn something and experience something you wouldn't have done before. So bring on the Enya. That's what I say. Bring it on.
Well, so if Cider was a band, what
don't
band
you fucking
would
say the
Cider
words?
be?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say, but it would have to be right. If there's only one band that can beat, but it has to be this band in every iteration of the multiverse, because that's how diverse Cider can be. So I'm going with the Beatles, because they're so perfectly balanced.
Oh, well, take that.
Yeah.
Cider thanks you very much.
It's the Beatles, but
That's
then you've got,
great.
it's not just the Beatles in this universe. It's the Beatles in every single universe that may or may not be out there. So it's a limitless run of limitless iterations of every Beatles song in the history of the catalogue.
Oh, amazing.
That is what Cider is.
I thought you were going to say like Gorky's Zygotic Monkey or something like that. I'm well chuffed with the
Captain
Beatles.
Beefheart
Great.
over here. Like,
Yeah.
Well, if Cider's the Beatles,
Well,
what does that make you,
What a
Gabe?
win.
Oh, yes, that's a great question.
fucking
You could be,
Ringo, obviously.
I think you could, well, George is I'm a huge George Harrison fan. I've been flashing my photo of him. I'll just get him up again. For those of you listening,
There he is.
George Harrison, there he is. I keep a photo of him on my desk. I just love the Wilburys, the Travelling Wilburys, love all his solo work. You know, I do love him in the Beatles, but I just think as an individual, what an extraordinary tale, what an extraordinary person he was. But yeah, so every year I host a little thing called George Fest, which I'll have to invite you guys to.
oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, so on the day that he fled the planet, whenever it was, I think it's in November. Anyway, it's in the diary. It always tells me every year. Get people round, listen to a load of George, and then, really go off at the deep end. And this year, actually, we did drink an awful lot of cider because I think it was just after our trip, Gabe, and I was absolutely stacked with it.
Oh,
Brilliant.
yes. Oh, mate, I've been we've watched episode 1 of Get Back at Little Pomona this last week, and I can confirm the view of watching the Beatles from above, arguing and bickering and that weird tension, that's just cider makers as a whole industry I've seen. Like, that's why it's not
fantastic.
progressed. There's no cohesive language to unite them all. None of them have the same ideology, and it's just a mess. That's how cider can be viewed. So it is the Beatles.
Or a limitless kaleidoscope
Yeah,
of
I preferred
creativity.
Ollie's description.
No, bring it right down.
Yeah.
I
Now,
can't... Go on.
Ollie.
Yes.
Well, no, sorry, no, don't let me cut you off.
No, I was literally going to start whittering about how much I enjoyed our trip to Little Pomona. It was really...
go on.
I knew James
Well,
from...
let's talk about that.
Well, yeah, because I knew the guys from my previous life in wine, and I do think there are so many more bridges right between all drinks than barriers. You know, I remember when craft beer really took off, and there were lots of people in wine raising eyebrows, saying, "Oh, you know, do you think of it as any kind of threat?" And I was like, "What on earth does that even mean? You know, the more the merrier. You know, this is a wonderful, wonderful." Deeply exciting moment. And I feel exactly the same way with cider. There's only ways in which we can encourage people to enjoy one another's work. And Little Pomona is a brilliant example of, you know, wine-centric ideas, but coming through a completely new discipline and then delivering something that is actually, you know, completely unique in and of the people who make it. So I loved it. I felt like it was, I don't know how to describe it really, because the atmosphere and the vibe in the place is, it feels like an enclave on the planet. It's just something that doesn't exist anywhere else. So it's an energy and a kind of a philosophy and a moment in time that I will cherish. I absolutely loved it, and I've still got a few bottles of theirs left, but I must order some more. Martin, I will tap you up.
Yes, definitely so, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. it's you know, it's the magical thing about cider is that it is especially these kind of ciders that are rooted around varieties and orchards and places, is the opportunity to go and visit them, and it is a full experience. And you know, these are all the cues that are had with wine, but we're talking about drinks that are our, not our native wine per se, but it's our native kind of fruit fermentation, and it has all of the characters and the levels of importance and potential reverence of, whether it be somebody who's making something incredibly fine and elegant and value laden, or whether it be like the, you know, Monsieur and Madame with the cave, who's, you know, got the little bit of wine that they make every year sort of out of the back of the shed. It can fill all of those. You know, you're talking about emotions and kind of feelings. It definitely taps into
the other thing that I really loved learning about and listening to you, Gabe, was when we were talking about social values. You know, the orchard as a place of recreation or as a cohesive, you know, opportunity for whether it's sequestering carbon or people coming together to do all sorts of things. That really resonated with me, and I found that to be really inspiring and something that feels like it's been around for a long time, but that I don't know, just somehow here in the UK, this is not something that we talk about a lot. This is something that I feel certainly I've lost. You know, I previously wasn't as aware as I should have been of. So I was delighted to hear that.
I think it's about the the value that we attribute to it or not currently.
yeah.
But I think only increasingly we are going to understand and attribute the value to these places from that economic, that environmental, but as you know, crucially that social element. And speaking of social elements, I think I'm right. You do a podcast.
I do.
We might have heard of it. A glass
from,
with.
A
glass.
Yeah,
a
it's a
glass.
glass. Yeah,
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
Tell us about that.
Oh my God. I had to catch myself from saying what I was going to say then as well. Yeah.
There were notes of bitterness in the comment there. So tell us about that, and who have you had the actor who played Lando Calrissian on your podcast?
No, but I do have him behind me in his full Return of the Jedi skiff-guard costume because that was given to me by my brother at Christmas this year, and that was a wonderful present to receive.
Star Trek
Billy
is
D.
the
Williams.
best.
I love Billy D. Yeah, I do love Star Trek as well. I've actually got some Star Trek figures from the original Star Trek the Motion Picture over there.
must be worth a
Again,
fortune.
rather like Cider and wine. You know, I'm a Trekkie and I like Star Wars as well. It's a lovely thing talking on podcasts, and it'd be lovely to get you on. You know, it's an opportunity really to share a glass with somebody of note who has something to say about anything really. So I've had all sorts of guests. I've had Pink has been on the show, and Sting, Dawn French. And those of you who are not in the UK, Dawn French is a really funny. Well, she was a comedian. She's an actress. She's just extraordinary. Kind of
National treasure.
One of those national
treasure. Yeah.
USA. Yeah,
And
another one.
Tell you what, Sir Trevor McDonald, he's a very famous newscaster here in the UK. He was the guy who sadly had to tell us we're going to war with Iraq and stuff like that. So he was absolutely extraordinary to spend some time with, and loves wine. So that was a wonderful afternoon. I don't mind telling you that we, after the show was recorded, we had a very long lunch together, and he actually told me that he's the world's biggest fan of Pink. Started singing her songs. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Sir Trevor McDonald is currently singing Pink at me. This is amazing. And we're only half a glass in. The rest of the lunch was extraordinary. Wait till we get on to Iron Maiden, seventh son of a seventh son. Wow, that was just me actually. He'd left.
Well, Olly, given that list, I would be more than happy to do your podcast.
Love it, Scott. You're in. Count yourself in, buddy.
Producer Scott.
Neutral Cider Hotel no longer good enough for you, Scott.
You might get paid for this gig.
Traitor.
You're all invited. You're all invited. I love
Delusions of grandeur.
people from all walks of life. We've had everybody on there, so anybody's welcome. The more the merrier. Absolutely, Scott. Your place. You've got a berth on the ship. No problem.
Is it?
You can. I'll tell you what. I'll lend you the captain's cabin.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
Is it?
Wow.
Is it?
Don't raise the booze.
Do you prefer people to have would you prefer your guests to have an interest or a background in wine, or are you just looking to just have a chat and have a drink?
It started that way, and then it moved to me pairing a drink to the guest. And so we've had all sorts. I had Asma Khan on recently, and she doesn't drink alcohol, so I found a really wonderful drink for her, Everleaf Forest, which was delicious, and she really loved. Phil Jupitus is a comic in the UK, did it, and again, he wasn't drinking at the time, so we did some non-alcoholic stuff. But it's just fascinating hearing people talk about moments in their life that have got a drink involved, because we've all had that moment, where we might have proposed to someone, or sat on holiday, or just been struck by a brainwave. But there's actually more than you might think of them as well. So as a narrative device and a way of interviewing someone, it does open up, quite a lot of possibilities. And also because someone's having a drink with you after the second glass, the stories tend to flow thick and fast. I remember Sting telling me about why he bought his house, and it was because he wanted to swim naked in the lake. And I was just thinking, great, just keep rolling the tape. This is wonderful. I love you, Mr. Sting. And in truth, he and Trudy Cider, they were absolutely charming. And this is the other thing I've discovered, that no matter how extraordinarily well-known someone might be, just that people actually, when you have a drink with them, it's just lovely. The feeling in the room is just as it is when you're with your mate down the pub. So that's what I really love doing a glass with. It's a wonderful show to be at the helm.
Do you have anyone who's still on your list that hasn't called you back?
Oh, so many. Honestly, Grant. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan. I mean, yeah, how many times do you have to ask?
Well, he's one,
Mr.
actually one of
T,
our
actually.
listeners.
Mr.
So, yeah.
Is he? Yeah. Well, Brosnan, if you could, I mean, he works for a tequila brand, and I just think, come on, it's a slam dunk. It's a win for you. It's a win for the brand, and I want to talk about GoldenEye. But yeah, no, Mr. T was the other one. I really want to get Mr. T on the show. So far, no, we've had no luck booking Mr. T. But again, if anyone has, any connection with Mr. T, he's more than welcome to come and have a glass with me on my podcast. If he would like, because I think he's amazing.
Be a glass of milk.
Yeah,
right?
well, who knows what he likes? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? What does he drink?
Oh my God. Well, look, maybe looking at future guests, are there any voices in wine that have come up since you've been in that have blown you away with like a sort of an approach in the next kind of generation?
Yeah, there's a few actually. I'm seeing increasingly people on social media, on Instagram, doing a really good job. I think I would probably, the person who I'm most keen to listen to and who, he's a good friend of mine as well, is a guy called Freddie Bulmer, who's a wine buyer. And he has a knack of fearlessly kind of finding quite unusual wines and championing them to an audience who may otherwise not go for them. So I really like listening to Fred. I think he's doing a great job. But truth be told, there are so many. There's also, Brad, the London wine guy. He's very good. London Wine Time. There's more and more coming through that I think, part of the thing about it is I want them all to kind of thrive and to find their audiences and also to do well, because I want people to enjoy wine. It seems to me there's so many platforms now that in a way, yes, you've got the more democratized approach to being able to speak and to get yourself out there. But equally, that does mean there's a lot more voices. So it's more easy and more hard than when I was beginning. So I really do love to be able to try and give people words of encouragement. The British Bouchon, she's another one. She's she's great talking about wine. I mean, there's a few that I've got my eye on that I just really appreciate that they're doing it their own way. And I think that's the biggest advice I would give anybody. Just stick to your guns, and keep on it and and make friends in the game. That's what it's all about.
And how about winemakers? Anyone in particular that you're excited about at the moment that's doing something different?
Yes, there are. I would say, there's a guy in Greece whose wines, well, there's actually just 2 or 3, but there's a guy called Apostolos Themiopoulos who makes just stellar red wine, and you can find his work like $11.99 a Majestic. There's one there, his Xinomavro, and it is so delightful. It reminds me of like really high end light Italian reds like Barolo, but with a real elegance of something like Pinot Noir to it. And it's just one of those drinks that it shouldn't be $11.99 in truth. It really is world class wine at a reachable Sunday roast price point. So I love what he's doing, and he's very natural in his ways, but his wines aren't that funky. They're really, pure, precise. They're really well guided. But he's not in the way of his own wines. He's letting the place do the talking. So I really like his stuff. And similarly in Santorini, Yannis Paraskevopoulos makes just absolutely stellar Assyrtiko, which is this white grape that he does a wild ferment on. His wild ferment Assyrtiko is just one of those white wines. It sadly has gone up a wee bit in price, but it's still, it gives me tingles to even think about it. As I'm just dreaming of having to calm down after this by listening to George Harrison and Enya at the same time.
Whoa.
One in each ear. One in each ear. 1 foot in each bath. I mean,
Oh my God.
So what's happening for the rest of the year ahead, Ollie? What's exciting you, in terms of your work, whether it be wine or cider? There's
a load. It's been a really lovely start to the year because my book, The Home Cocktail Bible, I'm just waiting for that unicorn noise to come in. Really was. Yeah, thank you. It was a lovely thing to be part of, and it did go well. It was well received, which was really nice. And I'm pleased to say it's still doing interesting things at the moment. And there's going to be a follow-up book, which is really lovely, which will be announced soon. So I'll be working on that. My glassware as well, that came out just before Christmas, and that's available in Dunelm here in the UK. Yeah, so wine glassware and cocktail glassware and all that sort of stuff. And actually, I wanted to talk to you guys about glassware because, I'm using a wine glass to drink my cider out of, which is kind of my go-to. Yeah, what should I be? What's the kind of go-to for you all?
Milk carton.
Cow horn.
No, literally, depending on it. We discussed this, I think, in like episode 4 or whatever, as a brief chat of like, there's you get the different flavors and notes and everything from different glass, but also you get what you like and what you have. Unfortunately, in our house, we smash everything that's stemmed, and Little Pomona have the wonderful stemless version of a glass that I pretty much drink everything out of. If I'm honest.
They're brilliant. I've got one of them at home and I do use it a lot. And actually, I am also bringing out a stemless wine glass, which will be available at Dunelm. Shameless plug, sorry, I had to just get it in there. So this year's shaping up to be a belter. There's lots more of glass with, there's new episodes out right now, which you can download via my website and all of that stuff. And then there's live stuff. I'm doing the Ideal Home Show. That's coming back. There'll be a bit of a tour later in the year. There's lots more telly coming as well, which is always great fun. And then travel, which I'm really excited by. You know, I only managed 2 trips last year. Normally I travel quite a bit to wine regions. And, you know, last year I think I did Sherry and then one other place. That was it. And so I'm really excited to get back out there. So that'll be this year. And hopefully there will be an awful lot more cider in it as well. There's rumours of a project. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, Gabe. But am I allowed to say anything? I mean, it just.
Well, I don't think that they've got any knowledge of it.
The
yet.
Bath with Enya.
Yeah, the Bath is basically it. Yeah. So the project is we're going to collaborate with Enya on an anthem for cider, and working title is Wassail, obviously. But we're going to, wassail away, wassail away, wassail away. That's
Yeah.
See how I did that?
His head even twitched of like, hang on, I fucking got it. I've got it.
Yeah, totally got it. Yeah, nailed it.
Drop that, mate.
River Y Flow. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
River Y Flow.
That's it.
Tamar Flow. Yeah, it's going to be great.
So how about you? What's in the year for you guys? What's coming up?
Give us the project.
Yeah,
We've
come on.
derailed it. What?
Oh well, there might be a drink in the offing of a collaborative nature with a cider maker.
Yeah, for fun.
Will it be a bathtub cider?
Yeah, it is now.
No. Well,
I think it's bathtub cider. It is now.
Oh, that's exciting.
It might have gone into a bathtub by accident. In fact, that's not true. I had a very little sneaky taste of it just this last week, and remarkably, given that I had some input to it, actually tastes rather good. So
no sausage.
My input so far has been benediction from afar, but I'll write some tasting notes and make a contribution in that regard.
Do.
It's like Grant will read it and go, hang on, he said this grapefruit monorail about my cider.
Yeah.
Hey, this is, seriously, Grant, this is great. Is this still available at, can I get this? Where can I get this from?
You can get this from
First Waltz.
from my website, able.co.uk. AEBLE.co.uk. Don't judge the website right now. We're working on making it better. But
Done.
I can
And
sort it
what
out.
is this? Just for anyone who can't see the screen.
What?
This is First Waltz Pet Nat Cider 2019, which was the... there it is. Which is absolutely scrumptious, which I am going to order some of as soon as we come off air.
Just because you mentioned, George Harrison travelling Mulberries, I know they're not connected explicitly, but First Waltz, this is named after it's a nod to the last waltz with the band. I don't know if that's a band that you have any love for, but if you don't,
the band, yes,
get yourself involved.
I've love for all bands.
So perfect. I love them so much. But yeah, I'm sure Robbie Robertson will be knocking on my door for his 5% off of this, off of these 200 bottles.
Bravo. Olly, what can I say? Thank you so much for joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. For our listeners, could you tell them how they could learn a little bit more about you, what you're doing, what's the website, what's the socials? Tell us.
Yeah, totally. I'd love to hear from anyone who wants to chat about cider or anything, really. Enya or wine or whatever you like. My website is ollysmith.com, which is OLLY. And you can find me, I am on Twitter, but I don't really look there. So I'm mainly on Instagram at Olly Smith, OLLYSMITH. Or just, come round to Gabe's house next time I'm there, or Martin's, Grant's or Scott's, because we're all firm friends now. We're likely going to be in the bath in our wetsuits with the apple emblazoned on our tummies. It's not weird because Enya's playing. Otherwise, it would be weird.
And that is cider, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Olly, it's been a pleasure. Cheers to you, my friend.
I love you
Take it
guys.
easy.
Thank you,
Olly.
Cheers.
Cider is lush. Oh, so there we go. Olly Smith. What a guy. He's isn't he a great ambassador for all drinks?
Yeah.
It's lush that he's getting into cider. I think that's a really cool thing.
And his enthusiasm, one, amazing, but also similar to someone I know, and I'm questioning, is he the ciderologist of wine, or are you the wine spurt of cider? That sentence was so hard to say.
Where does he go with this?
Definitely the latter.
Yeah, he was just a wonderful guy to chat to, and the fact that he was that passionate about wine and all drinks just makes me want to find out the best of each category. It isn't just a case of like, oh, what does he think of cider? He's that kind of guy that you're like, I want to know what wines he's drinking and cocktails and everything that he's drinking, kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He mentioned when he first started drinking, he wanted to try every beer, and every wine and every, like it wasn't just this is what I drink and that's what I'm going to focus on, which I imagine probably more specifically with wine experts or wine spurts that
you can't surprise Spurt.
They would always have drunk wine and only wine and wouldn't maybe entertain anything else being of the standard and quality of the wines that they drink. And I feel it was quite refreshing to hear someone in the wine world not have that opinion, and when he spoke about the craft beer thing and how exciting that was, rather than being a challenge to the wine world, is great to hear. Because I do think people look at the wine world and they go, it's full of pretension, and people who are maybe wary of other drinks and other drinks industries, and that wasn't the case at all, which is good to hear. I didn't get to ask him what his favourite shirt was. I did want to do that.
Shirt?
So, yeah, he's quite a flamboyant shirt wearer.
Gabe or Olly?
I could ask Gabe. Well, Gabe just wears Ciderologist t-shirts. This is the first time I've seen you not in a Ciderologist t-shirt in about 6 months.
Gabe, what's your favourite Olly shirt? And I'll ask Olly what his favourite Gabe shirt is.
I reckon it's his one with flamingos on.
Don't.
He probably has got one with flamingos on, to be fair. He is suitably jazzy, such.
Don't pretend you don't know about his flamingo shirt.
Okay, let's keep it on.
That's the episode title here. We've done 4 hours of recording. 4 hours of wicked recording.
Wickedy.
Hey, you've got the flamingos. Oh my God. I will actually reach out to him and ask him what his favourite shirt is, so that we've got a little snippet for the Instagram.
We have to.
Well, we need him to dress in said shirt and to pose, and he will, because he is so inclined.
Well, I genuinely feel like they're important to him, and that was why I wanted to ask it. Yeah. And we got sidelined talking about wine,
Lando Calrissian, Orinoco Flow.
Also, his favourite Beatle,
Marillion.
Favourite Beatle, Ringo. The Gabe Cook of music.
Do you know what though? The fact that he said the Beatles alone, and then infinite universe possibilities, just to show the scale of what he viewed cider as. That was obviously, it was a funny joke and it was nice, but it was also nice for him to be like, the possibilities here are a fucking joke, that it's this big. And the fact that it's just essentially us and Cider Chat and fucking Little Pomona, maybe, that get advertised. But the fact that it's such a small group of things, and that there's all these makers, and that we're actually celebrating something wonderful, is so happy to see that someone on the outside sees that as well. It isn't just us seeing the greatness.
Well, and it's undiscovered and unexplored, and I think that's what's exciting to someone who's interested in drink, but maybe isn't invested in it in the same way that we are in cider specifically. Is that there's to the wider public, it's completely unexplored, and especially for a wine person, because you're gonna know with wine, someone with all this experience, you're going to know straight away who's making good wine where and why it's so good that they make it, and the terroir and the techniques they use, and whereas there'll be cider makers out there, Gabe, that you don't even know about yet, and you're the Ringo Starr cider, so
quite. I know.
So it's exciting. It's so exciting.
It is. And the great thing about Olly is that he's already, it's not just that he's gone and he's visited cider makers and he's enjoyed it. He has then gone and shared it. He has presented ciders on TV, on Saturday Kitchen, his weekend drinks, food and chatting show, and also in his newspaper columns as well. So he has featured these ciders already. He is already in that cider advocacy mode, which is absolutely critical and crucial. As much as any of us can shout and champion, and through this podcast and through all of our actions, to have really prominent people, respected and known, people such as that, who are talking about it and actually giving people the opportunity to purchase, that's a really, really awesome thing. So Olly, if you're listening, which obviously you will be, thank you very much for coming on to the Neutral Cider Hotel. You were a fantastic guest. All right, there we go. Now it's time to move on to our first cider tasting of 2022. It's time here at the Neutral Cider Hotel to, funnily enough, drink some cider. What? And our first tasting of season 2 is a doozy.
I do not like that.
Who wrote the? I don't know. What's a doozy?
I think it's San Diegan, isn't it?
Is it San Dieguan? What does it mean? What's a doozy?
It means exceptional.
It doesn't fucking mean anything.
It's a word in the dictionary. Something outstanding or unique of its kind.
Are you looking at a dictionary or the internet?
Dictionary.com, but
I'm looking at an urban dictionary, Grant.
Yeah. Why do I sound like Kermit when you do me, Martin? I don't understand.
I've produced Questlove's podcast.
Well, look, Grant, why don't you tell us more about this doozy that you've brought along today?
I will. Today we're going to drink, or I have been drinking.
Have nearly drunk?
Have nearly finished a bottle of First Waltz, which, fantastic. I can't actually tell you how happy I am with the noise that you chose. I bet Martin had something to do with that as well. Yeah. He's keeping very quiet, but there's no way that was Scott alone. We'll come up with your noise next week.
My noise, unfortunately for me, is my voice, which is horrific. I'm cursed with that.
True.
So just carry on with your side.
I'll carry on. I'll take the bugle over that. So yeah, we're drinking First Waltz 2019, which is made by our friends Little Pomona, who probably haven't appeared or been mentioned enough on the podcast yet.
I know it's.
Yeah, they're really struggling for promotional stuff. But so I through Restock was approached by James and Susanna to do an exclusive bottling, and sent them a brief of give me a pet nat with some jangly acid and some grapefruit pith, and maybe not in a bourbon cask. So they listened to 3/4 of the brief and put it in a bourbon barrel. But anyway, quickly, it's a blend of Ellis Bitter and Dabinette apples from their home orchard, with Perry pears from a farm in Dimmock, which I've never heard of that place, but sounds interesting. Wild fermented bourbon casks, and then with an addition of some cryo conditioned. And I thought maybe that would be a horse moment.
I probably do need a horse's knowledge right there.
Go on then, Gabe. Give us your crowd conditions.
So Dimmock is a small...
That's right. Dimmock is a small village dating back at least to the Roman era, with numerous coins being found in the village. It came to the fore... Okay, so I'll stop. cryo conditioning is when you get apple juice and you freeze it, and then when you take it out of the freezer, the first bit of liquid that thaws is super sugar concentrated, because the majority of your water is still bound up as ice.
Or
so it's
you freeze the apples.
Which
Well,
I think is what they did, right?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yep. You can go on their Instagram
Well,
and
hang on,
see
hang
a
on. hexagonal
bunch of frozen apples that they
Do we have a
pressed.
challenge to the ciderologist here?
Well, no,
Well, 'cause
he's not
we've
what he said isn't incorrect, but how this particular cryo conditioning was done was with frozen apples, I think.
well, no, because what does you've got cryo extraction.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
which is where you
right,
extract
sorry,
cryo
sorry.
extraction. I personally think they've used the wrong terminology, but that's,
She only wrote the book on it, didn't she, Susanna?
yeah.
Oh, God. So when we've got Olly here and we're talking about the language of cider, can you see how fucked it all really is? But yeah.
I know.
To be fair, it was a really good point. As much as I'm, keen and interested about the educational aspects, doing that feeling aspects is really important. And that's what I think, you, Grant, and you, Martin, do so well. And Felix as well. It is, trying to engage with people, not on the wordy or the educational level, but just the great experiences.
I'm trying to convey something on a channel that you can't challenge me on. That's my main goal, because I am afraid of critique in all its glory. So you can't tell me this doesn't taste sublime. That's why. But no, carry on with your tale of its making, Grant, or
Well,
why.
that was pretty much it. That's the last kind of addition in terms of the recipe, and I think I wanted something not too austere in terms of its flavor, or too challenging, I guess maybe is the right word, and that was kind of where we went with the little kind of. Would you call it a poem, or the little thing on the label that says "You dancing, you asking, I'm asking, and I'm dancing." That's better with two people. I should really have done that with Gabe or something. Should we do that? Gabe? You're not even listening to me. You're not even looking.
I am listening. I'm also
not paying attention, so
Yeah.
I can multitask.
So first waltz. Name the first waltz. The name first waltz came from my love of the band, and then figured, okay, well,
Which band?
The band, Gabe, the band. You need no
the band.
You need no other band. You need
And
no.
I know no other band called the band. This is getting very confusing. What are they
isn't
called?
it?
That's what I'm asking.
I'm not usually asked to speak for this long, Gabe. So.
But you love the band.
I love the band, and I wanted to have a cider, attached to my name and the business's name that would appeal to as many people as possible. Didn't want it to be too challenging, too funky, too wacky. And I think that. I'd like to say but primarily they achieved that, and I think it tastes fucking great.
Grant, you mentioned a couple times that you didn't want to be in a barrel. Why did you not want it to be in a barrel?
Well, specifically a bourbon
Yep.
cask, because I sometimes with a bourbon barrel, the flavors that go into the cider from a bourbon cask can be too strong and prominent for me, particularly vanilla. I get a lot of that kind of foam banana, false sweet flavor, but luckily with this, I think it's been controlled pretty well. And most of the barrel for me comes on the nose rather than on the palate, which is definitely more preferable for me.
I wanted to ask, is this like your choice and what you pitched to the guys, is that informed from your time selling the cider and what you're seeing sells, or exactly what you want and want to give to the people that you're selling to?
The latter. It was like the former, the latter. So basically, it's what I wanted in a cider.
Yeah.
But then also it's that translates into being something that's easy to sell because
100%.
you love it. You know, if it had been something that I thought could sell, I would have gone in with, this is what price you need to make it for. And that's the truth, you know, and that wasn't really a consideration with this. You know, I know I said I wanted as many people as possible to be able to drink it. I guess what I'm really, I mean, is as many cider drinkers to drink it and pick it up, you know. So yeah, it was more about what do I really want in a bottle attached to my name. These are the flavors I love, and therefore that's going to make it easy to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
And it has been my best seller from that batch of Little Pomona.
Nice.
But it's one where you could have gone to 7, 8, 9 really good makers in the UK, especially, that would have done a sub 4% sort of controlled ferment and like an actual controlled product if you wanted it to be absolute mass market appeal. But having something that on the outside, when you were talking about it, that got me excited about drinking it before I had it, because I was like, fuck, it does sound good. It does sound like something I really want.
And that, you know, that's something it's something that has crossed my mind, as I, you know, mentioned before, the amount of people that ask you as someone in the cider industry, regardless of what your job is, if you're not making it, ask you, have you ever thought about making it? Or are you going to start making it? And it's like, no, because there's lots of great people doing it. But then I had thought, oh, well, it would be actually quite easy just to get someone to bottle something for you and stick a name on it. And then, you know, tell everyone that it's great and they should stock it and make it sub 4% and, you know, have it for £3 in a shop. But it's not really showcasing the best that is available in cider making at the moment. So that's kind of what I want to do and always want to do, regardless of what area of it I'm working in. It's, you know, it's about promoting the best, and that's what I think Little Pomona do.
And did I hear you say earlier that there was only 200 bottles made?
Something like that, yeah. There's I have.
How many of those have you drunk, Grant?
Yeah, 197. I've got 10 cases left, and I think Little Pomona have about 6 cases. So I think there was 250 or between 250 and 300 bottles. Yeah, so small batch.
It's a glorious cider for anybody. For me, it's got quite a lot of Gers character. So if anybody's into that particular style of sort of Belgian beer, so it's got that. I think Olly alluded to that sort of racing, raspy acidity, but it's got the texture which is coming from that tannic fruit. I wonder if it's coming from the Perry pears as well, or what I'm quite interested in. I can't quite pick out where the pears are playing. They're there. I think they're doing a bit of everything. It's really interesting, and it's got that sort of, you know, grippiness, but there's also like a really nice, pleasing, soft sort of hay or almost maltiness in there as well, which is again maybe where the sort of Guernsey beer comes up. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I also realised that I have made an error, and I wish to apologise to Little Pomona. They haven't made a mistake, because what technically cryo extraction is squeezing frozen apples. Cryo concentration is the process that I talked about, whereby you freeze the juice. What they are describing is a cryo conditioning, so that they have conditioned the cider with the, in this case, cryo extracted juice that has undertaken that little second fermentation within the bottle, and that's where the natural sparkle comes from. So They are correct. I am correct. Everyone's correct. Yay.
Name drop everyone but Martin. That's fine. Yeah.
And
No, I've not
Mark's
got an
correct
ego.
too.
I've not got an ego.
Grant's correct. Scott's always correct because it's 21 degrees in San Diego. It's a great drink. Bravo. Well done.
No, it's super. It's got this kind of like, it's got all the oily, pithy, like full skin of citrus, like it's on the nose, and that it's almost like a little bit, not toasty, but there's like a charred character. I'm assuming just from the charcoal in the barrel, but like to me, it just is like when you're making old fashions, it's got that kind of not the whiskey, but the ceremony of the cocktail and the balance of that. And then on the palate, it's got that acid that sits right at the back and cleans it, but also amplifies the fruit that's there. So it's just beautifully citric and balanced in that, but definitely extreme. So it's not like medium casual and like anyone can really drink it, I don't think. But those who would want something like this, it's going to knock your socks off. That's what I think.
It's also got that. It's really coming to me now, as especially as it's warming up. The lingering finish for me is the Egremont russet with that really nutty, almost hazelnut or almondy, even more accentuated because it's cryo extracted juice as well. That's really coming to fore and neatly playing with the gentle creaminess of the bourbon. I totally agree with you, Grant, that I'm no big fan of when that bourbon is to an extent that it is just foam banana vanilla-y to an extent.
Foam banana.
Foam banana. I'm obviously not bothered about saying all the words today. I'll just do a bit of a shortcut.
Stick in as many vowels as you want.
Foam banana spurt.
Once again, cider is lush. That's all I've got. Thank you, everybody. Well done.
Scott, what are you thinking of it?
Oh,
ouch.
Actually, you've got one of the best cider makers in the US in your hands. So I'm sure
what are you
you're
drinking,
not missing.
Scott?
Yes. Just don't know if I'm keeping up with you guys, but this is Alpenfire based in Port Townsend, Washington. Single variety Northern Spy, 6.1%, and it is delicious. That's it.
Oh, man.
Come on, hang on. We've been doing this show for how long?
Delicious.
The sum total of your tasting notes is it's delicious.
Of course, it's fucking delicious.
They've taken delicious out. It's delicious.
It's been delicious.
It tastes like apples.
All right.
Brilliant.
It's light, it's crisp, and it's dry, but I don't know, maybe semi-dry. Because there is some sweetness there. It's just a hint, though. It's not overpowering. And I would say medium acidity. I don't know. It's very easy to drink in a sense, and it has a little bit of tartness, but not overpowering it. And by any means, it's kind of on the back of the palate a little bit as it goes down. Man, this is the bottle I had on Thanksgiving or when I was up there, and I bought another one and brought it home, and I cracked it out today. So it's
nice.
Absolutely.
What ABV did you say it was?
6.1.
Not bad for middle of the day in your recording time. As we
he did message the group chat like I'm drinking at 11 a.m.
Free lunch even.
You go into your next podcast, you're like, guys, I don't know why I'm Scottish.
All of a sudden I'm Scottish.
Oh, guys, why don't we just try and try a bit of banner?
Kermit. I could fall more
Couldn't
Kermit.
do Scottish Kermit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's just me.
It's just Scottish.
I'll probably sound like this. I'll tell you guys everything if you want, because I am pissed beyond belief right now.
When was that?
750 mil bottles at 9 or 10%. I'll fucking tell you whatever you want to know.
That was his cider of the year, wasn't it?
so good.
I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
I have a question for Grant and Martin. Can you talk about the process of how a cider gets made for someone? Like you mentioned you sent tasting notes to them. What happens? Do they make some batches and then send you some stuff to try and you say you like it or don't? Or is that something they just do there and they get it where they want it and send it to you, Grant? How does that work?
Well, I think with certainly with Little Pomona anyway, it's sort of a case of trying all the ciders that they have fermenting or have fermented, and then blending to create what I wanted. I think any other time in history, I would have gone down there and been more of a physical part of it. Couldn't do that, obviously. So yeah, knowing how many barrels they have going at any one time, combined with what they might have pressed from their most recent harvest, there's always going to be something that they can use to create it. So yeah, I guess I knew they would be able to do that cider. It's just a case of how close they were going to get. Martin will be able to probably give you a clearer idea of exactly how it works. But
the best thing to see here is obviously Grant, his love for Little Pomona, and then working with them with Restalk and then with Abel. He knows enough of their catalogue to know what they could get, and his expectations are met because he's well informed enough in that. What you get with a lot of people that they go like, say a pub chain or whatever, will go, we want a kegged cider. And like Grant was saying earlier, the pragmatic nature, they go, we want this price. And then the cider maker goes, I have this stuff that is going off, and I will be putting this. No, but they seriously, you break it down into, is this pragmatic? Is my name attached to it? Is this a commercial kind of thing that's on scale that you want replicated? If you want it replicated, we have to use fruit that we know the consistency of. Like there's these questions all go into it. But with the cider makers that we like and we drink with, it's usually when you're down there, they just pull out samples from each barrel, each tank, and you try them, and they say the literage, how much they have of X, Y, Z. And therein you can kind of build it that way. And to be blunt, a lot of it is predetermined because they go, cool, we've got 10 times the amount of this than anything else. You go, well, that's the base. And then you kind of pick the kind of colors that go on top of it rather than the base and the structure. But if you're going in as kind of a client and you're saying, we want X, Y, Z, then it becomes a completely different conversation. But it's down to really, like in this case, it's specifically Grant going, I know what I want, and I know these are the guys that can get it. And then that's why First Waltz is great. And it isn't a case of like, it's all right.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, I based it, and you actually, when you messaged me, Martin, when you tried it for the first time, and the way you described it was by choosing two of Little Pomona's ciders they had previously made and saying what sits right in between those. And those were my two favourite ciders of theirs. And that, like you said, that knowing what they can do and what they've done in the past, First Waltz, my sort of brief to them, I know that cider's already sitting there in their cidery in different barrels and different tanks. It's just about a case of them going, okay, which ones do we put together to make it that,
Yeah, that's not out of the realms of possibility. You're not going to a cider maker and going like, hey, Little Pomona, I'm looking for a 3% blackcurrant wine. You're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, fizzy,
exactly.
Fizzy with sugar in a can. That's a lot of people do genuinely think you can just change it because a lot of them that run bottle shops, pubs and that, they come to it from beer, which is a recipe-led thing. And then they quickly learn, talking to cider makers, that they're like, these are the ways we do it. And usually they're kind of tight on how they do it. And they go, this is the way. But then all the nuance and character comes from the choice of apples and the fermentation rather than necessarily, let's just add a shit ton of sugar and pasteurize the bastard.
Nicely done. There you go. It's very, very simple words. Grant, where can the good listeners of probably Great Britain and probably nowhere else, where can they get a hold of First Waltz?
Yeah, probably not. There we go. Ollie Smith's back with his trumpet.
Who has a bugle on hand? Who has a bugle on hand?
Olly Smith.
Fucking brilliant.
Olly Smith does.
You can. It'll be available from able.co.uk, aeble.co.uk. Possibly from Little Pomona as well. I know that they have put some up on their website. Whether they'll still be here when this is released, but those are probably your two best bets.
So there we have it, everybody. Another week, another show. Alas, the show must come to an end. Alas, I won't be able to travel. But, you know, it is... it's a long and winding road.
Oh, no.
Oh, it is.
So whine my guitar gently weeps. I'm not going to whine about it. That's what I'm saying, basically. So if you do enjoy our podcast and want to help, then please do spread the word about the Neutral Merlot Hotel. Tell your friends about it and encourage them to listen. You can also follow, rate, and review us on Grape Podcast and Spotify. 5-star reviews are appreciated, and your efforts really, really do help us out. Please do also follow us on social media. We're at Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram and Facebook, and Neutral Cider Pod on Twitter. As always, you can visit us on our website to listen online or share episodes at neutralciderhotel.com. Lastly, please reach out and leave us a voicemail with your questions or comments at speakpipe.com/neutralciderhotel, and we promise we will get back us to you. Anyway, until next time, stay safe, everybody. Thanks for listening, and wassail!